After 2 years after violent clashes in the Galwan region, we have seen fresh clashes, and this time in Arunachal Pradesh in the Tawang region. Now, the Indian Army did not officially comment yesterday, but we finally seen the government respond in Parliament today, and the government Defence Minister Rajnath Singh saying that there was an incident that took place on the 9th of December. According to the Defence Minister's statement in Parliament, Indian troops clashed with PLA troops who had encroached upon the LAC in the Yangtze area of the Tawang sector in Arunachal Pradesh and tried to change the status quo. Indian troops intercepted and stopped the PLA soldiers from encroaching. This led to a physical scuffle between the two sides, but PLA troops were compelled to return to their posts. The Defence Minister also clarified that none of the Indian soldiers died or suffered major injuries. Chinese military, however, blames the Indian side, saying that the PLA troops were on a routine patrol within their border area when they found that Indian troops had illegally crossed over the line of actual control. Remember, India and China have held several high-level talks over maintaining the status quo across the LAC, but the latest face-off has once again heightened tensions between the two countries. Well, to take the discussion forward, we're now joined by General VP Malik, former Army Chief, Einar Tangen, political affairs commentator, and also with us Dr. Srinath Kondapalli, Professor of China Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. General Malik, let me start by asking you what you make of this latest incident that has taken place along the LAC. Now, this comes after 2 years of the deadly and tragic Galwan transgression. We have now heard from the Defence Minister in Parliament explaining what India says went on. We've also got a comment that's come in from China, from the Chinese commander of the Western Theatre, saying that it was in fact a transgression on the part of the Indian Army. Now, so far, there seems to be an attempt to de-escalate matters after that flag meeting, China saying that the area is stable. But do you believe that we are likely to see more provocation in light of what has transpired?
Thank you, Shereen, for getting me on your program. There are a couple of things that need to be noted as far as this incident is concerned. Firstly, this area where the incident has taken place is an old disputed area. In fact, right from the time when we started talking to the Chinese on the LAC, this was recognized as one of the disputed areas. But having said that, the kind of incident that has taken place after almost about 2.5 years of the Galwan incident, and first time in the Northeast, I would say that it's another provocative action, the manner in which it has been carried out by the Chinese in a very large number as far as the strength is concerned, and at 3 o'clock in the morning. So apparently there was a surreptitious effort to occupy some of the areas which they think belongs to them and which has been a disputed area all along. I must also tell you that even during Kargil war, they had attempted something like this, and there was a face-off for almost 3 months from July till September. But finally, ultimately, they went back to their original, their old locations. So coming after 2.5 years of our diplomatic as well as military level talks that have been going on, it shows that there is no change in their attitude. The provocation on the LAC continues, and therefore we have to remain alert as we were during this incident, both at the tactical level as well as at the strategic level. The fact is that they do not want to mark the LAC on the map. And unless you mark the LAC on the map, this kind of incidents can always take place, not only in the old disputed areas, but elsewhere also.
Yeah. Thank you very much, General Malik, for giving us the context and the importance of the location and the significance of the location where this clash has taken place. Einar Tangen, if I may come to you to just understand what you make of the timing of this particular incident. As General Malik was pointing out, the area itself has been disputed, and that is not new to the conversation. But what do you make of the timing of this particular incident? Many seem to suggest that this could perhaps also be linked to the fact that there is a deepening of defense and military ties between India and the US, and this comes on the back of, very close on the back of a joint military exercise between India and the US. What do you make of the timing of this?
Well, Shereen, I don't really make much of the timing. I mean, China is currently preoccupied with opening up. There's a change in the way that it implements its COVID policy. This is not the time when they would be concentrating on matters like this. This is a very minor incident. If you recall, in the past, there have been shoving matches between soldiers at different periods of time when they would chance upon each other. It's not unexpected when you're dealing with soldiers, but you know, let's keep in mind that this is something that has to be settled diplomatically. I doubt anyone wants to test this as a wartime matter. So at this juncture, I think making a mountain out of a molehill does not make a lot of sense. The Chinese government believes that they were in the right. The Indian government believes that they were in the right. At this juncture, all we know is disputed territory.
Yes, let me get Mr. Kondapalli to comment on what we just heard there from Einar Tangen. Would you agree that this is a small incident, this is a minor incident? Because we're talking, of course, neither has the Indian Army nor has the Chinese side put out a number, but reports suggest that there were at least 300 people from the Chinese side that were involved in this, and hence suggesting that this was pre-planned. Professor Kondapalli, what do you make of this incident, the further provocation from the Chinese side, and to Mr. Tangen's point that, look, China's preoccupied with what is happening on the COVID front, it's trying to reopen its economy, it's got unrest domestically as well, that this is really not a front that the Chinese would like to reopen at this point in time?
Well, the civilian side is focused on the COVID-19 related aspects, but the military is fanning out on Taiwan, South China Sea, India-China borders. We have seen soon after Nancy Pelosi's visit, there were 6 areas targeted in Taiwan, and currently in South China Sea, there is a 3,200 acres of built-up area. And on India-China border areas, 624 Xiaokang villages have been constructed. On an average, about 100 households located, many ex-servicemen being settled down in these areas, coming from the interior of China into these areas. Many of them from the intelligence, from the services, settled down in the places in these Xiaokang villages. In fact, at the Yangtze area, there is a Xiaokang village, the well-off society village, as they call in Chinese, the Xiaokang. And there is a lot of military preparation for the past 2.5 years. Since the Galwan incident, China had mobilized just about 70,000 troops in Ladakh and 220,000 troops in the Western Theater Command as a whole, in comparison to 120,000 troops by India in terms of its 11 divisions that are located across the line of actual control. So this is not a small incident, because there is a huge mobilization, and both sides were expecting some kind of a flashpoint since the Galwan incident. And the reasons are that President Xi Jinping visited Ningxi prefecture, opposite to Arunachal Pradesh, last July, and there was the efforts made in terms of the infrastructure projects. There is a new highway that China is building so that the military logistics are further strengthened. They are preparing for the 15th Dalai Lama eventualities in these places. And also there is a lot of other Air Force and army preparations done by the Chinese side. In fact, if you look at the kind of arrangements they have been making, this is mind-boggling. $23 billion of investment according to the 14th 5-year plan in Tibet alone, and a majority of them on the dual-use facilities, and specifically in terms of road construction and airbase construction. So this is not a small effort here. There is a huge mobilization as we speak. There is almost an eyeball-to-eyeball kind of mobilization. In fact, we need disengagement and de-escalation in many of these areas if peace were to come back to China and India.
So not a small incident, in fact, part of a larger exercise of mobilization. General Malik, let me get you to comment on what we heard both from Einar Tangen as well as from Professor Kondapalli there. And I was just looking at, several unattributed quotes coming in from military officials who are either serving in the area, who have served in the area. The Indian Express quoting one such official saying that the Chinese perpetually control the escalating ladder and choose a place as they feel is appropriate. And I want to link this back to the comment that you made. You don't believe that this is going to be an isolated provocation. You anticipate or expect that there will be a further build-up of such transgressions, of such incidents.
Is that question at me?
Yes, to you, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you please repeat that question? I'm sorry, I lost your voice.
No, General Malik, I was asking you what we heard there from both Professor Kondapalli as well as Einar Tangen. Mr. Tangen suggests that China is preoccupied with larger issues at this point in time, and this is perhaps too small of an incident to focus on. But Professor Kondapalli setting the context in what is a larger exercise of mobilization in this region. Now, you also said that you anticipate this is not going to be an isolated provocation. You expect more, and many reports are suggesting that military officials either serving on ground or who have served in the area anticipate the very same and believe that it is going to be China that will go up the escalation ladder. What is it that you expect from here on?
Shereen, firstly, I think Mr. Kondapalli has given a very good background of what is going on behind the line of actual control for the last so many years now. And the kind of population which has been settled, new villages have been made, the new infrastructure has come. So as a result of that, we have also been reacting both in trying to create better infrastructure in those areas. And the strength of the army has also gone up along the line of actual control. But what is surprising is the kind of incident which has taken place. It may be a minor incident, and it has been de-escalated within 48 hours after the commanders met each other. But the fact is that it was a well-planned incident, and obviously it was a provocation to create an incident of this nature, which has been noticed by the public in India and by the parliamentarians in India. And since looking at the trend that we have seen of the kind of talks that have taken place, and the kind of, it seems that there is no change in the attitude of the Chinese PLA or their political officials. And this is obviously not been done only at the level of military commander on the spot. I'm sure they had some backing of the political leadership at the back. So looking at the situation, the fact is that the Chinese do not wish to mark the LAC on the ground, and they are claiming not only this area but also the whole of Arunachal Pradesh. That is why I said that I don't see any de-escalation taking place on the LAC or disengagement also taking place. There has not been much effort on the disengagement after some initial action that took place in eastern Ladakh. And of course, Arunachal has now come into the play as far as de-escalation, disengagement is concerned.
Einar Tangen, let me come to you. While you believe that this incident per se is a minor incident, where does this leave the relationship between India and China, which has been fraught with tension, with a sense of betrayal, a complete lack of trust, especially on the side of the Indians? Post what happened, the horrific incidents of what happened at Galwan 2.5 years ago. Now, it's also a fact that at this point in time, India has taken over the G20 presidency. In fact, meetings are currently underway in India, and which is why I ask you what you make of the timing of this particular incident, and if you believe that this is going to make matters worse between the two nations.
Well, it's certainly not going to improve them. At this juncture, the biggest hole I can find with the arguments put forward by my learned colleagues is that, quite frankly, there's no strategic value for China in trying to pursue something like this at this time. As I said, they're very concerned about the issue with the United States. They're concerned about Taiwan. They're not interested in opening up, more issues on their borders. So it doesn't make sense from that perspective, either economically, politically, or militarily. So they can say that, talk about strategies and all of these things, but it just doesn't make sense. This is not a high value area. It really is about national pride on both sides. India drew, basically unilateral lines and decided that they wanted to push those as the boundary between China and India. They were never agreed. And that's why you have the situation today. And that goes back to Nehru's time. And it's been well documented as to some of the mistakes that were made there. So at this juncture, the countries hopefully can get past what is a minor matter and deal with less, unless this was a provocation by others, by perhaps people who are trying to push an agenda in India. There will be questions in Beijing about that.
There will be questions, and of course we're trying to find answers to many of those questions as we speak. Professor Kondapalli, before I end, let me close by asking you, where do you believe this now leaves the relationship between the two sides? And at this point, both in Parliament, the Defence Minister saying that attempts have been made to disengage and de-escalate. That's the sort of commentary that's coming from China. Of course, both sides saying that it was the other that transgressed into territory that didn't belong to their side. Now, where does this leave matters, especially in the list of priorities, as Einar Tangen was pointing out, that perhaps China has bigger battles to fight at this point in time, and this may not result in anything bigger than what has transpired on the 9th of December?
One of the things we need to remember is in the 18th Communist Party Congress in 2012, Xi Jinping said, core interests are more important than developmental interests. And at the 20th Party Congress in October this year, there is the mention about the territorial integrity, sovereignty, etc. And core interests have been reiterated. I translate this to Galwan. I translate this to Yangtze region, Tawang region, and others. If I were to be Indian, I read this precisely like this. Where do we go from here? Dr. Jaishankar mentioned that the bottom line between India and China is peace and tranquility prevailing on the border areas in terms of improving any bilateral relations. That is it. If there is no peace and tranquility on the border areas, we will not see any bilateral relations improving. Of course, India is hosting the SCO meeting and the G20 meeting, for which President Xi Jinping will visit India, more likely to happen. But that is at the broader level of multilateralism. When it comes to the bilateral relations, peace and tranquility is the basis. And so the Indian side is pretty strong in the eastern sector. They have had issues in the western sector during the Galwan, but even that is now fixed. So it appears that there is no way now for China to occupy territories and increase the pressure on India. Chinese demands have also increased, for example, on the United States and others. In other words, the Chinese commentators have been mentioning that India should disassociate with the United States. And this is not acceptable to India in terms of vetoing the Indian foreign policy postures. So we are actually in armed coexistence between the two. Mao Zedong mentioned in '62 about the armed coexistence that is still prevailing in the India-China border areas.
Well, I think that is the perfect note to end this conversation on an armed coexistence. That currently is the status between India and China. And we will have to hope that we find answers to some of the questions that we have, some of the vexed questions that we have been asking through the course of this program and, of course, over the last few years. But General Malik, Einar Tangen and Srinath Kondapalli, many thanks for joining us here to take us through what you make of this latest face-off between India and China. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh giving India's version to parliamentarians in Parliament this morning. Appreciate you joining us with your perspective and your insights. We will take a break. When we return, we continue our conversation on the other side.
Powered by Get Tension.